It's the end of the day with Ray. This is a Saturday special. Man, I'm excited. I'm bringing back Dr. Kim William Gordon. You notice I had to say doctor this time. Last time I had him on here, he was just finishing up his dissertation. He's got his PhD. Dr. Kim William Gordon, congratulations on that. How are you doing, man?
Thank you. And it's always a pleasure. I love joining this venue, so thanks for the invitation.
Well, you know, it's exciting. We're in some crazy times with COVID-19. Obviously, education is, you've been thrown through a loop. It's in the news every single day, whether we open, whether we stay home, how do we teach our children. And, you know, for those that forgot, Dr. Kim William Gordon owns a company. It's a consultancy firm called TELEMENTORIS, and it's an adaptive learning. It's a learning consultancy. It's futuristic learning. I mean, tell us a little bit about what you're doing, Doctor.
Well, and let's clarify, this stuff does not only apply to the educational market itself, but also training across the board. We're seeing corporations pick this up pretty quickly because it is so incredibly effective and so efficient. So adaptive learning technology, give me just a second, I'll pull up a graphic here. Let's take a look at the way that we have traditionally taught first. And then that gives us a clue on where we're going with this adaptive learning technology.
Well, you're doing that. You know, it's interesting what you just said. The corporate world is adapting to this technology as well. Are you finding that the corporate world is actually adapting at a higher rate than even the educational systems?
They're a lot more amenable to the idea because they're obviously driven by the need to make sure that their people are trained and retained.
All right.
And adaptive learning technology, by its measures so far to date, now keep in mind, this is relatively new technology, 18, 24 months at this level of maturity, although it's maturing even faster in the last 6 months. We could have a whole conversation about that.
Yeah.
But hopefully if I've done my button pushing correctly, we've got a graphic up on the screen.
Looks great.
And on the left, you see our traditional brick and mortar classroom. Now, keep in mind that we have educated and trained people basically the same way for the last 100, 150 years. And we put one teacher in front of a whole bunch of students. And all the studies that have been conducted since have told us systematically that one of the best ways to make sure that you're teaching an audience is one-to-one and matching their needs, their expectations at their pace. And in a traditional brick and mortar and the one next to it, the typical e-learning environment, that can't be done. You've got one teacher, 10 students, 20 students, 30 students, and the absurdity of a lecture hall, 90 students. And then adaptive learning technology comes along, and that's the one on the far right. And the way I describe it is, think of your relationship with Netscape or Google or Amazon. Those systems get to know you. They know everything about you. So if you take that AI, that artificial intelligence, it is a engine, a personalization engine, and you plug it in to the educational sector, you end up with that graphic in which there is one teacher or teachers, they can be scattered around the world. You have a alt teacher assistant that is personalizing the content to that individual, and now you have an educational model in which that individual is no longer having to sit through class listening to things they already know. They can leapfrog right into the content that's necessary for them to be successful.
Does this technology...
It changes the model. It changes the model upside down.
Does that technology then, so obviously as a child's learning, or even as an adult through a corporation, as you said, as the students learning, the AI or the intelligence in the software is kind of pegging, hey, this person has an attribute for this, he's really good at this, or she's really good at this, so let's enhance that.
Exactly.
And that it already knows not to waste time with this other stuff because it knows it because it's artificial intelligence. Interesting stuff.
So the way many of these systems approach it is, let's say you're trying to learn Algebra 1, which seems to be nearly impossible for students to learn anymore. I don't know why. But the system first pre-tests you. What do you know? Conceptually, how to approach an issue. How do you learn? And then it starts tailoring the content specifically to you. Now, two things result of this. The classroom evaporates. There is no classroom. And secondly, grades evaporate. It is a measure of mastery. Either you know this or you don't. And if you don't, then you go through some more incremental components in order to make sure that you master it. And there is no timeline. Some students get Algebra 1 in a week. Some students take 6 months, a year. Who cares? As long as they get it. And that mindset is going to be very interesting to see how it's adapted. No doubt about it.
Well, let me ask you a question. I think it was Einstein that said, you know, everybody's a genius, but if you measure a fish by how well it climbs a tree, it'll live its whole life thinking it's stupid. So,
exactly.
So if you have this student that's in this alternative education system, are they going to miss anything? Because most people think, oh, you're only going to focus on this, and they're going to miss all these other things. But it sounds to me like it picks up all these other things. It already knows you know that or you don't know that. So am I correct?
Exactly. And what happens in my model, the model that is a direct result of my dissertation, I'll pull that graphic up here. Bear with me. We need buttons to be automatic, to read my mind. You know, I tell people I love the 21st century, it's the 24th, and this stuff is really going to work well.
Yeah.
Because right now, nothing seems to work quite the way it should. And this guy. All right, so if you bear with me, let me walk you through this model. This is the model that I developed, once again, as a direct result of the dissertation, but that personalized learning environment is dead center.
Okay.
But during the dissertation process and the interview process with players in the marketplace, as well as students and teachers, educators and technologists, it became readily apparent that you could build this little blue box in the center, but it was isolated.
Okay.
It was not connected to the educational community at large. So there were a number of components that were developed. Up in the upper left-hand corner is the mastery engine, which is basically where all the content resides. And that's peer-reviewed, and that is also your measure of accomplishment.
Okay.
Then you have subject matter experts, because what we've discovered in the last 150 years is that the human teacher may know one heck of a lot, but they may not know everything that student is curious about. So you plug in a whole series of people that can jump in and assist that learner in exploring areas of thought that perhaps are well outside the boundaries of what was predefined in the classroom. Then we have a series of exterior interfaces. We don't need to go into that. The empathy model in the upper right-hand corner is monitoring the student's health, welfare, how are they doing, or is this pressure getting to them? All of those measures that we've had a number of psychological profile technologies in place for years that can help us make sure that the student is not only moving forward educationally, but they're moving forward at a pace that they can manage. And then a collaboration universe. And that, I think, is the most important element of this overall approach, in which you plug this learner into a universe at large. And now we're talking about a learner that can explore the same areas of thought, the same areas of education that others around the world are. And then finally, the socialization component, because we also identified the need to make sure that as learners are coming through this process, that we are teaching them a spirit of cooperation, cultural sensitivity, all of the things that we in the business community require. Because what happens in a traditional education model is the student graduates from college with a mindset that the only thing that's important is them, and then they're thrown into the business world, which is a collaboration world. So this helps correct that disconnect.
Well, that's pretty awesome. I'm sitting there thinking about the business side of this. So if I need to educate my team or my management team, executive leadership team, not only do I have this built-in collaboration platform, I got the subject matter experts, I got the skill sets in the mastery or whatever I want to put in that mastery section. This is really cool stuff. I mean, it seems like, why is it taking so long, and why are we hearing so many arguments about remote learning now, just in the world we live in today with COVID?
Well, there's a lot of, I'll use the word stagnancy in the system. There's a lot of predetermined systems that are in place that are very resistant to change. And it's not just a stateside problem, we're seeing it globally. However, we are seeing other countries, Pacific Rim countries, where the countries of Sweden, Norway, up in that belt, that are adopting this stuff very aggressively. And what happens is that instead of a resume, I'll let you chew on this for a little bit, A potential employer doesn't have to listen to the nonsense, and we all know a lot of it is, that's listed on the resume, but they can look right at the individual's profile that they've allowed them to see that tells them their strengths, their weakness, their communication styles, their education capacities, all kinds of things. So the implications for the business world are twofold. I think it ultimately will allow you to hire better and with more confidence. And then secondly, once you have them in your system, your corporate system, your business system, then you can make sure that they are moving along at the training pace that you expect them to be trained at. And if not, then you throw more of these AI facilities at them and make sure that they're able to walk out into the world as accomplished and proficient as you want them to be. It's a very interesting model.
Well, I think the collaboration, I'm a huge person around collaboration, love collaboration. Love the ability to explore imaginations, not only my mind, but my own, but others too. And it seems to me that if you're even a child in the classroom, if they're the child that really has that vivid imagination and can go off into places that the people around them think they're insane, or the teachers just give up on them, they have an ability to match themselves with other people around the world. That could be really powerful.
It's powerful.
I mean,
some of that is the direct result of my personal experience. In my professional capacity, there were a number of companies that I worked for that were smart enough to have basically a brain room where you walked in, there were no windows, there was only one doorway, and you had wall-to-wall whiteboards, and you just dreamt stuff up with some of the best professional minds in the world.
Yeah, we don't do enough of that.
Move forward.
Yeah, we don't do enough of that. You know, it's just, you know, sometimes I always tell people you got to put a day on your calendar just to imagine what could be based on what it should be. And if we all did that, we'd probably be doing things a lot closer to the realities, not only in the marketplace, but in the real world itself. Well, Kim, it's exciting stuff. You know, I know that you're probably staying really busy. I'm excited to hear that the business world is adapting to this. That's super exciting. If you get any of those business clients that want to talk about that with you on the end of the day with Ray, I'd love to have those conversations.
Absolutely.
Because I think a lot of our friends in business, maybe there's a different way to teach. Because I got to be honest with you. You know, if you think about, and you're familiar with the industry that I'm in, you know, the technology industry, and you spent some time even in the document imaging industry. But, you know, this last 6 months, what are we doing? We're going on Zoom meetings, looking at stuff we were looking at before the COVID hit. We're studying stuff that we were studying back in 2000. We're not really exploring anything with open imaginations. We're not doing anything different than we already did. And it's quite frustrating. Now, not everybody's doing that. But boy, you know, in the future, when you have these platforms and these tools and the ability for... Can you imagine if corporations were cooperating with each other? And you know, and they were actually collaborating with each other. Holy crap, man! You know,
exactly. And I think the doldrums that have occurred in the last 15, 20 years, maybe even 30 now that I think about it, is that I think there was a constituency that actually believed that the model that was developed was the right one. And that's lunacy. As humans, we've never developed the right model. We've always built a model and then built something on top of it and then changed that model, scrapped it and started all over again. And this adaptive learning technology, I describe it as if we would have strapped a jet engine on a horse and buggy carriage and expected it to perform at the same level that we expect horse and carriage buggies to perform, and that's absurd. We've added a whole layer of power that we can't ignore. And I know there is a concern about how radically this is going to change the classroom. And that's the wrong question. The question is, how radically can it change learning? And most importantly, lifelong learning. People don't stop learning when they're 24 or whatever the number is when they graduate from college. They don't stop learning. So let's facilitate that. Let's move it forward. Let's have people that are in their 90s dreaming screwball stuff up, kind of like me,
trust me.
that might have some treadwear. Who knows? But we live in interesting times.
Well, I got to tell you, Kim, it's great to have other people that are as insane as I am, and it's always great having you on the end of the day with Ray. You want to wrap this up with anything special?
No, actually, just find me on LinkedIn. Love to chat with anybody that has an interest in this. And we are moving forward with a series of product announcements, probably another 60 to 90 days. We're being very cautious about how we're actually constructing how we're going to move forward with this product. And, we're looking for all kinds of things. We're looking for people that want to help or just chew the fat or help fund it or be cooperative or do comparative analysis. Who knows? Back to your point about collaboration and cooperation, I never met a mind that I didn't like to talk to.
No. You got to open your mind, That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Kim, it's great having you on. I look forward to having you again because we both know this, my friends. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you here on Monday.